बाजी खून की बाजी है, ये बाजी तुम ही हारोगे। तुम कितने भुट्टो मारोगे, हर घर से भुट्टो निकलेगा। जिए भुट्टो।
मैंने इनकलाबी तब्दीली लाई है इसको, मैंने मुल्क में अवाम के ज़हन में तब्दीली लाई। मैं खुद जिम्मेदार, मैं जानता हूं कि किस हद तक मैंने किसानों और मुजाहरों और हारियों के ज़हनियत में तब्दीली लाई। ये बहुत बड़ी फतह है। और भी अगर इस्लाहात ना होते, ये भी बहुत ही बड़ी बात है।
तो खिदमत करोगे, मेहनत करोगे, लड़ोगे, मरोगे और जदोजहद करोगे, ईमान से करोगे, खुदा की कसम करोगे।
In this video, we'll examine the bad luck factors that were not in control of Bhutto's government and led to Pakistan's economic downfall, and finally put the question, equality or economic freefall, to rest. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was born on January 5, 1928. He was a Pakistani politician who served as the President of Pakistan from 1971 to 1973 and as the Prime Minister of Pakistan from 1973 to 1977. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto came to be known as the first democratically elected leader, but unfortunately he inherited New Pakistan, which was separated from East Pakistan and defeated in war by India. Bhutto's regime has faced a lot of criticism for falling growth rates and rising inflation rates in his period. Although growth rates of 1950s and 1960s were quite impressive, it was unlikely to sustain that growth rate after separating from East Pakistan. The nationalization policy of Bhutto's government has come in for sharp criticism. It is alleged that the nationalization of industries and financial institutions did serious damage to the efforts for economic development during 1960s and resulted in economic inefficiency and misallocation of resources. Pakistan's economy in 1960s grew on average at 6.8% per annum, but during 1970s the growth rate fell to 4.8% per annum on average. Despite these facts, it is imperative to understand the circumstances in which Zulfikar Ali Bhutto took over. Moreover, while evaluating Bhutto's regime, it is critical to keep time frame in mind as compared to other researchers who consider 1969 to 1977 as a homogeneous period.
Economic policies and performance. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, after holding the seat of Prime Minister of Pakistan, introduced nationalization in three phases. The first phase nationalized 20% of large-scale manufacturing sector, which extended to oil, cotton and rice industry. After success of first phase, second phase was launched in 1974 with 13 insurance and numerous financial institutions being nationalized, while Finance Minister Mubashir Hussain adding that it was crucial step as wealth of nation should not be concentrated in a few banks. The third phase nationalized 2000 cotton ginning and rice husking industries. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto also introduced land reforms of 1972, under which land from 2,231 large landlords was occupied and redistributed to small farmers. Lastly, rupee saw a depreciation by 131% in Bhutto's era, and export bonus of 1960 was also discontinued. The devaluation showed its impact right after East Wing of Pakistan got separated and 18% imports were lost, and new markets had to be found that rose Pakistan's export by 41%, especially to cotton industry, as the demand, according to Asian Development Bank, was very high for the cotton worldwide.
The major impact of economic policies was on exports. The growth in exports was the key factor in the growth of industrial output during the time period of 1972 and 74. As during 1972 and 73, the exports increased by 153%, and in 73 and 74, the manufactured exports increased by 19%. In addition, an improvement in the agricultural sector was also observed due to the increase in the support prices of various crops and timely and adequate supply of essential inputs, which led to the growth in the agricultural output. Moving towards the banking sector, after May 1972, the element that was playing a vital role in the improved performance was the availability of credit. The government's control over the banking sector was more, due to which more credit was available to export sector and to small farmers. In 1973, State Bank of Pakistan introduced the export refinancing scheme, which had lower lending rates than the nominal banking rate. The economic boom that was observed in 1973 and 74 was short-lived, and the exports of Pakistan started to decline. Although the 2.5 years of Bhutto regime were good, but the last 3 years saw the decline in the growth rates. In 1974 and 5, the investment in the private sector reduced to 15% and that of public sector increased from 5% to 75%.
There was an enormous expansion in the cost of imports following the increase in oil prices in the year 1973, which caused inflation to reach up about 30%. Additionally, during Bhutto's government, the floods and pest attacks caused prices to rise and affected the industrial production in Pakistan. The disappointment of the cotton crop in 1974 came at a time when it was impossible for Pakistan to use it to its own advantage, as there was a global recession at that time. Excessive inflation is seen as Bhutto's biggest failure, but it can be seen that the inflation was imported and nothing could be done about it. There was a global recession that caused the increase in the oil prices and the fertilizer prices, which increased the cost of imports. It can be seen that during the first few years of Bhutto's government, he did manage to resolve many problems, but as the time continued, the problems started to rise. There was a global recession and inflation was inevitable.
If we talk in the context of numbers from 1950s to 80s, we observe how the only comparatively lower in growth than the 70s were 50s. From an overall point of view, the 70s probably saw the worst governance in terms of economics growth for Pakistan. Economic mismanagement in general, the fiscally imprudent economic policies in particular, caused a large increase in the country's public debt and led to slower growth in the 70s. The key factors that played a role in the poor growth rate of the 70s majorly include the weather conditions, which proved to be adverse in the favor of an agricultural country such as Pakistan. The other major cause was the recession faced by Pakistan in the 70s. Two wars with India, the Second Kashmir War in 65, and the separation of Bangladesh from Pakistan also adversely affected economic growth. In particular, the latter war brought the economy close to recession, although economic output rebounded sharply until the nationalization of the mid 1970s. Large generous aid from the United States also declined after the global oil crisis in 73, which led a further negative impact on the economy. Further, the government policies began to saw businessmen with the suspicious eye and the capitalists enthusiastic of making investment fled the country due to better opportunities beyond and unwelcoming policies within. Although those in support of Bhutto argue how the government mostly had bad timings and an even bad set of luck, and it wasn't just mismanagement.
This video is a part of our Economy of Pakistan project. Hope you liked it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel.